In a deleted scene from season 2 of Loki, part of an impending 4K UHD Blu-ray release, Loki recalls how many people said Loki was a problem while talking with his friend Mobius over slices of key lime pie. After listing many names, Loki also brings up 2 villains from Marvel Comics that audiences have not yet encountered in the MCU. The first is Amora, also known as Enchantress, and the second is Absorbing Man, who began life as a boxer named Carl Creel, a character seen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Until Loki poisons him with an elixir that gives him the ability to transform his body into the quality of anything he touches. At the very end, Loki brings up Hercules, who appeared in the post-credit scene for Thor: Love and Thunder. Let's discuss these TVA tidbits.
I remember this scene, not word for word, but I remember it's a very emotionally packed scene in Loki season 2, I think, when they're eating the pie and he's talking about all the mistakes that he's made and why people think he's the villain. And so it's easy from that point of view to see why these mentions were cut, because it kind of waters down what that scene eventually became about that we saw on the screen. But it is interesting that they were even going to go this far. Amora, it would be fascinating that they would mention her because Sylvie's powers were very similar to Enchantress, and that comparison was made a lot from season 1 and season 2. And then Carl Creel is such a vastly different character than these other 2 mentioned of Amora and Hercules. He's a very street-level character. He belongs very much like in the Netflix Marvel world. And so I think it would have muddied the waters. It's probably a very good edit that somebody took this out, but they were going to go there and they were going to like expand into these character roles and then leave more threads hanging, which would have made us all really angry probably. So I'm glad it was cut. And I think it also lends to the king of it all and all of the challenges that they had with editing that season of that show to deal with the Jonathan Majors stuff. And so what it ultimately did was great because it left Loki season 2 at a great stopping point, or a place where you could continue and maybe meet these characters.
Yeah, it's interesting. We mentioned it in the thing, but like this character was shown. Creel, Crusher Creel, was shown in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Absorbing Man, and the Enchantress's sister Lorelei was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for an episode, and so like these characters were danced around in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's just interesting because I wonder if this was just cut because it didn't match the vibe, like you were talking about how this was a really emotional scene. Maybe they didn't want to end it on a joke. And also, I just based on like it almost felt like I'm sure it wasn't, but like it almost felt like Hiddleston was just like saying names, like he was like when he said Donald Blake, and then it was like that's the guy Thor pretends to be, and it's like it almost felt like Hiddleston was naming characters that he'd read in the comics or something. It almost didn't feel like
it almost felt Thor once.
Yeah, it almost felt improvised to me, and I wonder how much of that scene they wrote and how much they let him like just keep naming people and sort of like joking about it, because it's just how it felt to me. But I don't know.
Yeah, Haley, I like what you brought up about giving credit to like some editor that kind of went through with a fine-tooth comb and found these references that are nice on the surface, but in the greater context, do they really work? And to that end, I want to give Brad Winterbaum some credit because I think this is a direct result of his leadership and kind of coming through. And I wouldn't say that the ship was ever like off kilter or off course, but you know he has righted the ship to some degree. And you guys mentioned Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I thought about we've got Daredevil Born Again right around the corner this spring. And we've seen more and more about how that series is actually going to be related to the previous seasons on Netflix. And I'll never forget the pilot episode of season 1. Matt, his father, was fighting Crusher Creel. So there's a reference right there as well. So if somebody comes through and, let's remove these just so those people that are like, the canon, what about the canon? Let's satisfy them.
Yeah, because we would all do the Leo meme thing. We'd all be like, there, he said the thing. Like we're not really going to focus on, like you said, Haley, what the scene is supposed to be about, which is the complicated nature of Loki's morality and how he's been remembered and interacted with other people throughout his life. That's supposed to be the focus, and instead this would have spun out all these YouTube videos about like It's kind of like the Mephisto name drop in Agatha, where it just became like the "she said it" type thing, and it just spun off a million theories and all of that. When's he going to show up, and when's he going to pop in, and all of this. And ultimately, Marvel kind of does this. Like there's a lot of stories like this where we'll hear about Feige coming in and axing the mention of a character, or somebody wanting to use some very small scale character as a small part of a story and being told no from Marvel Studios. We know that Marvel does give their creatives a lot of control, but at the same time, Feige is extremely protective over the stable of characters that they have use of at Marvel Studios. There's a long history of that, of how, like, I'm thinking back to an old NPR investigation it's been a long time ago, but they tried to buy the rights of the Doorman, which is a character that can turn into a door. It's like the stupidest character ever. They tried to buy the rights of that character from Marvel Studios for like a lot of money just to prove that they could do it. And they were repeatedly told, absolutely not. We will never sell a character to anyone, because at some point, we were just talking about James Gunn using deep cut characters and giving them a voice and giving them life. You think Polka Dot Man sounds stupid, but then all of a sudden somebody comes along and they're like, hey, I've got this great idea for this character in this particular thing, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm really glad we were able to include this character, which seems stupid but paid off. So I think just that idea of, do we want to go ahead and start mentioning this person, and getting them out there? I mean, why don't we just not do that? Because at the end of the day, what if we want to use this character in a significant way down the road, and we've already mentioned them, and then it becomes messy, and it just seems easier just to scrap the whole thing. But I think these types of things are always interesting, right? Like the deleted scenes that cut the mention of characters is a fascinating thing with Marvel. It's been going on throughout their whole canonized 20-plus movie history of trying to figure out how we can make all this stuff line up and match for people like us, ultimately, of course.
Yeah.
These people.
I believe there's a version of that Nick Fury scene, if I'm not mistaken. I may be making this up. There's something like this. There's a version of that Nick Fury scene from Iron Man 1 when he steps out of the shadows that mentions the X-Men. Like, I think he mentions
Spider-Man too. He says bitten by radioactive bugs or something like that. Yeah. He's like,
they were cutting it way back in the first thing of the MCU.
I wonder if they'll go back and doctor the credits of the Incredible Hulk, because Martin Starr's character is actually Amadeus Cho in that movie, but then we obviously saw him in the Spider-Man films as a teacher, and then we hear there are rumors that the character of Amadeus Cho is actually planned for the future, so have to keep an eye on that one.
We didn't forget, Feige.
He knows.
We thought we forgot, but we didn't forget. You just watched a clip from Multiverse News. If you liked it, go to our channel. We got a whole episode that it comes from, so go check that out and hit the like and subscribe. And we got lots of clips you'll enjoy, but also full hour-long episodes of Multiverse News with lots of things that don't even make it to clips. So check us out.
You stay clippy.